welcome back to Pokemon Team Creation Series. And this one comes to us from Rainbow Prism, who asked the question, what is Zims Pokemon Team from Invader Zim? I'll be honest, I did watch some Invader Zim back in the day, but that's one that kind of, I was just busy doing other stuff, watching other shows. You know, you can't watch everything. But I was very aware of Invader Zim. Yeah, I'm gonna sing the Doom song. Doom, 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 doom. Like, I'm aware of that, the whole bit and everything there. So, when thinking of a team for Zim, it's very interesting because, like, do I solely go with what this character would use for his team as a character in universe to meet his goals, or do I kind of mix and match, like, things that represent him and something that would be used for a genius conqueror of worlds, more or less? And, you know, it's a kind of a blend. So let's just get into it. First and foremost, he's an alien. I saw the name of his species. What's Zim Zalabim or something like that? Is the old Johnny Quest thing? His species is called, I believe it's Urkin? Is that the name of his homeworld is Urk, and therefore he is an Urkin. Yeah. So, there's several extraterrestrial Pokemon that exist in Pokemon. But in terms of, like, just a straight-on alien, I mean, the closest one we really have that is Behem. I could have gone Deoxys, too, but Deoxys, I think, is a little overpowered for this team. Behem is really the true alien of the group. The evolution of the, Eaglium? I can't remember the pronunciation. But the one that looks like a standard kind of gray a little bit, but floats and all that. It's got the three colored dots to symbolize, I believe it was first encounters of the third kind. Sorry, I got it in my room. There it is. Anyway, close encounters of the first kind. That was what I was referring to reference that. So it's your classic alien, more or less. I always liked the design too. It's a pretty decent design. Then I knew I needed something that represented his malicious side. Because, let's be honest here, Zim is a pretty malicious little son of a bitch. And we've had him on that's been showing up lately quite a bit here. Morgrim, who's a really good representation of that. I mean, Morgrim are little sons of bitches well beyond the standard level of sons of bitches. Like, these guys are nasty little dudes. And they're kind of alien looking in their own right. Let's not mince words. They are not the most friendly of Pokemon, to say the least. So that was where I wanted to go with that route to represent that aspect of Zim's personality. But beyond that, we started to get into some interesting territory. He's actually a very capable pilot, but only, like, apparently in extreme circumstances. Otherwise, he just kind of keeps crashing into stuff. Beyond that, he's also highly intelligent and is a very capable inventor when he needs to be. So my thought process went to what would represent that on his team. And I ultimately came to the conclusion that I need to put a Metagross on there. Metagrosses are very large. For a small guy like him, it could act as a vehicle. It can fly on its own, so he doesn't really need to worry about the whole piloting issue. It is super hyper intelligent. And really, it would just act as his ace when things get dire. It would be something that would make sense. It does also look like something that'd be an extraterrestrial in many ways. So there's that. Zim also, though, walks around in a human disguise. I knew I wanted something that kind of represented that aspect that he's hiding in plain sight. His human form really doesn't look that much different than his alien form, save for the eyes, more than anything else. Yeah, his skin color also changes a bit. His hair is a bit different looking, but he mostly looks the same. He looks like a human version of himself, which is not that much different. But I knew I needed him on that could learn some sort of disguise technique. So could I go Mimikyu? I could, but the reason behind Mimikyu is very different. Ultimately, I went with Zora. Not Zoroark, but Zora. Reason for Zora, because it has, I believe, the illusion ability, which disguises itself. And it's a very young Pokemon. It's a first stage Pokemon versus a second fully evolved stage Pokemon in Zoroark. I felt that worked better on the grounds that he's still young. He's more or less an adolescent by his world standards. This made sense that he's still inexperienced in many things. Beyond that, though, we still needed two other things. We needed one. You can't have Zim without Gur. Unfortunately, Gur is usually disguised as a dog, and there isn't really a robot dog Pokemon, at least at this time. I mean, Iron something could exist at some point. That is an option. And it's kind of where I went, but I didn't go with an Iron. Obviously, there's only so many Iron Pokemon. I went with, in this case, Iron Bundle. Now, the reason for Iron Bundle, honestly, is simply on the grounds that he is, he just, when I look at him in the face, I see Gur's face on there. He seems very friendly and dopey, which Gur is very friendly and dopey in many ways. He's also, giver of gifts. He's still an Iron Bundle. He's giver of gifts. He's giver of presents. Still can attack, and he's actually a very powerful Pokemon in like the meta sphere. And that's kind of Gur. Gur's there to assist Zim in any way he kind of has. So I decided to go with Iron Bundle for that. Last but not least, though, and this is going to be your real outlier here. Zim was banished from his home world for basically just continually causing destruction wherever he went on his home planet. He was a destroyer of an unintentional level. And so I thought on that, and I'm like, okay, I need something, a Pokemon that brings disaster. And like my first thought is, well, there's Absol, but Absol doesn't bring disaster. It can predict disaster. So that doesn't work. All right, what else is there available? And I'm like, okay, there's not. Let me look up some of the most like dangerous mon out there. And I found one where I'm like, I keep forgetting about this guy, but I'm like, when I read the Pokedex description, it makes sense. It's an unintentional disaster Pokemon, which is what Zim kind of ultimately is. That he's not intending to cause a muck. He's just so narcissistic, overzealous, and all that he just does it. Esper. First off, kind of looks like Gur. So I mean, it's a cat than a dog, but it kind of looks like Gur. So there's that. But what does Esper do that makes it so dangerous? Well, first, it's got that 1,000-mile stare going. Like, then I saw someone in the article was looking up for the disaster like driven Pokemon. Say it's got that flashback stare going on, and it kind of does. Well, Esper basically it channels psychic energy in its ears, but it just has no control over the amount it's storing, and will release it in like a 300-foot radius and just cause severe damage wherever it's going because it just can't control it at this point. And that sounds, I mean, it doesn't sound one-to-one like Zim, but that sounds very much like a Zim comparison for someone who is an unintentional disaster, who just is causing damage and possibly taking lives without intending to, and just trying to go about their day and do what they want. Now, granted, Zim is a lot more destructive naturally than Esper because of his personality, but it still makes sense when you really break it down. So I thought Esper made the most sense. But we always have the most important of questions. How balanced is this team? And if you give me 1 second, I got to double check. I think Iron Bundle is a water ice type now. If I'm not mistaken, Delibird is a flying ice type. What am I saying? Psychic. It's a flying ice type. But I know all these guys change their types upon becoming the iron or past variants. So let me see here. Iron Bundle is a water ice type. Okay. So as always, how balanced is this team? Well, unfortunately, this team actually has a really big weakness to it. And that is the fact that half of it's psychic. One of it's a dual psychic with steel, which is very useful, but half of it's psychic. Right? And as always, we're not even taking into consideration that half this team isn't fully evolved. We're talking about from a type perspective, how balanced is this team? And like I said, half this team is psychic, which means half this team is going to have an issue with dark types, serious issue. 2/3 of this team has a problem. Actually, no, not even 2/3. The majority of this team has a severe issue with bug types. The steel type of Metagross does mitigate that issue, but the Safari type is just neutral to bug. So, at least 3/4 of this team has an issue with bug types. And half the team has an issue with ghost types. Now, luckily, you have 2 dark types to help counterbalance that, but still, that's not good. Otherwise, we do have a psychic type, which is great. Unfortunately, that steel type of Metagross is great. Unfortunately, that steel typing, all combined with Zoroark and Morgrem, means that it does kind of have a weakness to fighting. The Fairy and the Psychic help temper that to a degree. Unfortunately, the Ice typing is also weak to fighting. So, yeah, you know what? I'm going to put it. Fighting is a problem for this team as well. Now, that said, though, there's a Fairy and an Ice type, which means they have a strong advantage over, say, the Dragon type. There is also the fact that half the solid chunk of this team is good against Psychic types. You have 2 Dark types on the team, which means that Psychic can't really get through for much effort. Really, where the strength of this team lies, though, is that it is very strong against, say, a Poison-type team, more or less. It's strong against it is, to a degree, strong against a Fighting-type team, though half the team still has a problem with fighting. So it's a little mixed bag there. Yeah, I mean, most of the other weaknesses, say, were with Delibirds, for example, except for the Fighting-type, are weaknesses that none of the other Mon have. It's still weak to Electric. It's still has some issues with Steel on some regard. So it's not perfect. Rock is saved by its weakness, or Rock's weakness to water for Iron Bundle. But yeah, otherwise you have 2 guys there who could handle a dragon, but multiple dragon types, one being not fully evolved and the other just only being part ice in the water there. Dragons being a versatile typing, they can learn other moves. It depends how strong that ultimately is. It's not the most balanced team I've ever done, that's for certain. But we're not looking for balance per se. We are looking for what represents the character in mind. And I feel that this represents Zim pretty well. So this is my Invader Zim team. What do you think about this in the comments below? Let me know. Until then, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And I'll see you folks later.